Good evening to Selective Imagery. As you know, I am not Jeff. I'm David. I'm going to be conducting a seminar tonight on low light photography. Jeff has given us the use of his channel. And as this show is on YouTube, it will be recorded. And okay. Give me half a second here. You were supposed to be off. Anyway, I was talking to myself. The show is being recorded, and the link that you use to get here will still work in the future. This preamble is mainly for the PhotoClub Vancouver people who may not use YouTube as much as the selective imagery people. Jeff, in real time, can see the number of logins to the screen, but not who is logged in. The show has been advertised on Selective Imagery's YouTube site, and there'll be some non-PhotoClub Vancouver people in the chat, and I will try to answer all questions that are in the chat. And to contact me, please use the chat function on the right side of your YouTube screen. And while you're at it, please press like, which is the finger that goes like this on the bottom of your screen, and subscribe to Jeff's channel. It's the first Saturday of the month. He has a photo review, which happens at 6 o'clock p.m. Vancouver time. And I'm going to pass it over to Lynn, who has some announcements to make, and then I'll start my seminar.
Okay, hi, everybody. Sorry for the echo, but I can't make it stop because I'm running a Zoom. Okay, sorry, I've just ended the Zoom meeting that had a referral to this session. So I'm Lynn Copeland. I'm president of the PhotoClub Vancouver this year. Thanks to Jeff for making his channel available, and we're looking forward to David's talk. I'm just going to make 3 brief announcements for the PhotoClub Vancouver people. The first one is Louis Katz is going to do a review following up on his talk last month. The topic is depth. And just a reminder that your pictures are due April 15th, and the review will be April 28th. That'll give him time to do some work on them. May 12th, Matthew Ng, who's a member, is going to talk. May 16th from 8 to 10 p.m., David is going to lead a field trip to the 9 o'clock gun, which is in Vancouver, for those of you who aren't familiar with Vancouver, and also sunset. So we're looking forward to that. So I'm going to stop now, and David and Jeff can take it away.
Okay, Jeff, could you put, okay, and you can make me big. Thank you. I can start my seminar tonight. Okay, as like I said before, to contact me, please use the chat function on the right side of the YouTube screen. Now I will be monitoring the chat and will answer questions as we go. Also, please say hello so that we know who is viewing. All of the regular selective imagery people are already in the chat. And there's Terry, he's in Melbourne, Australia, and so is Roy Bixby. Randall is in Los Angeles, and I'm not too sure where Michael S. is. And there's Michael Shavloff, he's in Vancouver, and Rakesh, he's an American also. Okay. The YouTube feed is on a 10 to 20 second delay. So if you're in the chatting with others, there's no delay. Delay is just on the video feed. And I will start the seminar because I see there's 21 people here. The show is to help PhotoClub Vancouver to be prepared for a photo walk that I will be conducting on May 16th in Vancouver. All of the images are mine except for the rangefinder, which is one of the images down the right, which was supplied by PowerPoint and PowerPoint's AI. And good evening, Graham and Anita and Rakesh. Okay, next slide. Got my preamble. What I say during this seminar is my opinion of the current state of photography. Everything in photography is a compromise because it's you may not get the f-stop that you want, you may not get the shutter speed that you want, your camera mightn't get everything, but you got to come up with a compromise that works for you. There are exceptions to every rule, including what I'm about to say. Most rules were created in the time of film. They should be modified because of the higher resolution of the sensors and glass, because we're able to see so much more now than we could. And I find that a lot of these rules, except for the rule of third, which I think it should not be called a rule. It's generally, it works, but not always. It's something to think about. As shooting in RAW is better for post-processing. Shooting in JPEG works best when all of your settings are spot on. News photographers and media prefer JPEG, and that's so they can move files back and forth fast, and they don't want to spend the time processing them, so they just want to get it out. Shooting in manual mode is not always the choice of professional photographers. They use whatever mode suits the occasion. Once I get the exposure correct for night photography, I will enter and use manual or aperture priority mode for my shots, but only after I get it correct. The image you see on your camera display, it's a processed image. Even when you're shooting RAW, your camera creates a JPEG image from it to show on your display. The amount of processing depends on your current settings and what your camera manufacturer thinks that you want to see. The image on your display usually looks better than your file image. Yeah. And as Roy says, pity us old geezers, eyes aren't as good as the glass. And this image is the only one that's not mine tonight of the camera. And your equipment. The brand does not matter within reason. Some brands are better than others, but we can all argue that point. Some of us could argue for it until the crows come home. And some brands have better lenses for low light than others. I use a lot of third-party glass because my brand of choice doesn't produce the focal lengths at the brightness that I require. Most of my low light photography will be in manual mode. Using your histogram is a must to get your exposure correct. And towards the end of the seminar, I cover how to use your histogram. Seeing your histogram after every shot is a great advantage. All of my cameras are set up to automatically display the histogram after every shot or burst. The histogram shows you the past, and it shows you what your exposure was like when you took that shot. And what you can do is you can adjust your exposure based on your histogram for your next shot. And so that'll improve your exposure for your next shot. That is the idea behind the histogram. And I do not see any questions. Your required lenses. This picture here was in Calgary during our winter festival. They have two artists that work in steel. They make fire-breathing dragons. And it's they'll go through a couple or 300 pounds of propane every night. And what happens is that they have a button that the audience can press, and then the dragons breathe fire. And these flames, depending on the night, they'll come out 3 or 4 meters. Is faster glass is easier for focusing in the dark. It's autofocus actually works on my 2Z cameras that I have if I'm using f1.8 or faster glass in city low light photography. It's I was actually surprised when I tried that last winter just to see if it would work. And it's modern glass tends to be sharper than older glass. And depending on the effect that you were looking for, this may not be an advantage. Spell correct is not working. Pick the focal length that will give you the perspective that you want to see, the same as you're shooting in daylight. It's the only big difference between shooting after dark and shooting in the daytime is your exposure. And your tripod. Your tripod must be stable and easy for you to use in the dark, because what you want to do is practice doing everything in the dark and not use any lights, because the more lights that if you're using lights, you're going to interfere with the photographer that's beside you. And if you keep using lights, it could get rather interesting. Yes, Woody, I'm covering fireworks tonight. And this photograph is downtown Vancouver. I shot in 2019. I was at 2,500 feet up. I was in a chartered plane. And I know the reason why I know we're 2,500 feet up is because the air traffic control for Harbor Air goes up to that height, and we were kept. Whenever we got a touch lower, they complained, so I had to keep going up. But I shot this with my Olympus. It's EM1 Mark II. This was at f2.8, a 15th of a second, ISO 6400. It's and then I cropped out the wing of the plane so you can't see it in the shot. It's my tripods that I have are stable enough so that I usually don't use a shutter delay or a remote. It's you spend the money on your tripod or you spend the money on your delay or your remote. It's It's depending on what you're doing. Is Nikon Olympus and some Canon cameras have a built-in intervalometer, and this allows you to program the camera to operate on its own according to the parameters that you set. And usually what I'll do if I'm shooting the Aurora or even some night stuff like this is I'll have it so that it takes a shot every 20 seconds. And it gives me lots of shots that I can blend together. And that's another thing that I'll be covering later on in this presentation. And as Roy says, he likes Nikon's LED lit buttons that make working in the dark easier. And I definitely agree with him there, because it's nice when you can see the buttons and you don't have to keep fooling around to figure out which one is which. I suggest that you carry a manual for your camera, either electronic on your device or a paper copy, until you become completely familiar with your camera. There's always a setting that you can't find or set correctly, and I carry this around all the time, and I'm still referring to it because for my my Z8 and Z9, there are 3 manuals for each, and they're not thin copies. Big thing about filters, they have a tendency to cause reflections. So what I do with when I'm shooting after dark, I take all my filters off, because what'll happen is because you have some very bright light and you have dim light, and the bright lights, it'll come in and it'll hit the back of your filter and it'll reflect to the front of the filter, then back into your sensor, and you'll have a whole bunch of ghosts. Yeah. And sometimes these are advantageous, but usually they're not. If there's any questions, please put them in the chat. I know we got 22 people here. And now this shot is, I shot this of the 9 o'clock gun. And, but I went out the next night after our meetup and I shot it again. It was no drier the next night, but this is a composite of at least 6 shots. It's one shot was to get the background exposure, and the rest were to get the actual gun and to get to see the flame. And there's 3 different ways or 3 different genres for low light photography. There's long exposure, there's short exposure, there's multiple, and I guess composites. Composites and multiple could be the same thing, but I do them all. And this one here is a combination of short exposure, multiple, and I put it together as a composite. So long exposure. This is a shot in downtown Calgary one morning, and this is where you have the SkyTrain, we have the LRT, and this is going by, and this is outside. And this is your typical mode for low light photography. It's the easiest one to get into. It will, you can show your light trails and it'll smooth out the water. And if you don't have a tripod, we call it ICM. If the moon is out, the landscape may look like a daylight shot, except for the light trails and the stars. I've got the examples for this coming up. And this is the easiest way to start. You know, it's almost any camera and lens and tripod combination will work. Just make sure you have a sturdy tripod, and if and we can make this work, especially if you can see your histogram. And Roy, to answer to your question, I haven't had a problem with any of my F-mount glass for infrared photography. But, and that's because I'm using, my infrared camera is a D750 and I can't put my Z-mount glass on it. So I can't comment on the Z-mount glass. And this shot I took in 2004. And the big thing with fireworks is you have to set your exposure for the fire in the fireworks. And it's what I shot this at f8 at 4 seconds at ISO 64. I normally use ISO 100 or 200 and I adjust my f-stop. So for and I usually shoot now as f11 or f16, is because I want to see the color in the fire. And as you set your time as to how long you want the light trails to be. I find that 4 seconds works well. 8 seconds, if it's an energetic display, you just get too much in there. And but this works for me. And like this is a 4 second shot, and then this is over a lake, and so the water wasn't all that rough. And I shot this with an Olympus. It was a little bit better than a point and shoot, but not much. Is that the settings that I use now are the exact same as I used then. This shot, I'm sure everybody from Vancouver will recognize this shot. And this is what another photo walk that I had. I think that's when I shot it. And this is a 30-second exposure, and you can tell with the water, it's smooth right out. This is ISO 100 at f14. And I shot this on my D750 before I converted it to full spectrum. But with the 30-second exposure, you don't see people in the shot if they are moving. Somebody that's sitting or standing still, you'll see them and they may be a ghost. But and like this is a shot almost anybody should be able to get. Any questions or comments? Okay, this shot, I was down in the Palouse with everybody, except Renita and I were quite a ways away from where everybody else were staying. We were camping, and so I I figured I would just go out and see what I could get. This one, it's I used my my Z9. It really didn't need that. It's the big thing, but it's got excellent low light performance. And this was I used a 24 millimeter lens at f1.8 at 2.5 seconds. Is the hill that you see in the background on the left, that was lit by the street light. And this was ISO 8000. It doesn't take much light for you to get a good shot in low light. And I just wish that you could see this as well on YouTube as I can on my screen. This is not a composite. This is pretty well straight out of camera with minimal work done to it. If you get your exposure right, then all of this becomes simple. This one was this was a 5-second exposure at ISO 3200, and I took this at 10 to 2 in the morning. And as I think there was a little bit of a moon out, and I did have a red light that I used to doing some light painting. But it is very easy after dark to get shots like this. You know, like it almost looks like it could be daylight, but you can see stars. And what looks like fire in the background, they're street lights in the town. This is in, these standing stones are called Callanish 1. They're in the Isle of Lewis in the Outer Hebrides on the west coast of Scotland. Yeah. But and this was shot at f4. It was, when I went in this trip, I brought I brought 4 lenses with me, but 3 of them were zooms, and they were all f4 zooms. And I brought 1 prime, but I didn't use the prime for this shot. It's so this gives you an idea of what you can get if you increase your exposure. You can see more. And then the next one is a short exposure. And I shot this handheld. But for this, you need fast glass and a high ISO. It's it may or may not require higher end photographic equipment, but any camera that's less than about 4 years old should be able to do something like this. And you may have a lot of noise, but when I shot this, I had I did minimal work to this. I did no noise reduction. I used a 50 millimeter f1.2 at 1/200th of a second at ISO 1000. It's because the was moving at the time, and it stopped it. But it is possible to get stuff like this, and it's but you need fast glass. This is another shot downtown Calgary. This is also handheld. I shot this the same night, and had a slightly longer exposure here with 1/125th of a second. But it was able to stop the runner on the left and the people walking. Yeah. And then we have composites. And the moon is not quite this big in Calgary, but it's not far from it. I showed this to a woman in Texas, and she said that the moon is much bigger in Texas than it is here. And in this one, I shot the moon 2 weeks from the time that I shot the bridge. And this is the Peace Bridge in Calgary, and I shot this as a long exposure, so I smooth out the water. And then I took a moon shot that I had, and you'll find that most of the moon shots, you can take it from whenever, because the moon doesn't rotate, and so it's easy to stick a moon in anytime. Okay. Yeah, Maria, it depends on what I'm shooting, which lens that I have, but lots of times when I'm traveling, my fastest glass is f4, but I will bring 1' along just in case. Yeah. And this is another composite, and this is of 6 images. And is to put the sunset together, and they got the ghostly image of the 3 people. And it's and for this I had my camera set up using the intervalometer, and it's I probably shot about 20 or 30 or maybe even more images, and I just picked the 6 that I wanted, and then I blended them together to get the sunset and the ghostly image. Yeah. And this one is a composite of 3 images. Is the buildings, I shot them before sunset when the sun was still shining on the buildings. And then and the lights, that was shot probably an hour after sunset. And then I had a third image in between. And with this is I use my intervalometer function, and I think I shot over 200 images, and then I picked the best ones and I blended them together to get something like this. And my blending modes that I used were screen and vivid light, just to get something that I wanted to see. And this is the one that most people are going to be interested in. And it's this one is a composite of 5 images. And I shot this one the night of our meetup when we all got together, all 5 of us, with an umbrella in one hand and over our camera on our tripod and whatever. And what I did is I shot a burst. But when you shoot this, you want to get one image of your background. You get the exposure for it. And then when I had my burst, I shot that for the fire coming out of the cannon. That's the exposure that I used. And I don't know what that is offhand, but it was probably similar to what to what I use for fireworks. Is being BF10 at ISO 100, because that way you can see the color, and it's and these exposures were probably at 100th of a second or less, and so that you can shoot a burst. And if your camera is capable of 20 frames a second, go for it. And then what you do is you pick the frames that you like and you put them together in post. And and I said before, you got to have one shot for your background, because the exposure for your background is quite a bit different than the exposure than you want to use for the flame. And you got to put the 2 together. And we have photographic etiquette. Practice using your equipment in the dark. And you have to be able to do as much as possible in the dark, because any lights that you have may bother one or more of your fellow photographers. Because red lights, provided that they're red and not getting into the other parts of the spectrum, will not affect your night vision, but may bother the other photographers. I carry around a red light, and mine are they're LEDs and they're monochromatic. And that is what, because I normally carry that around, that's what I used to light up the stones at Callanish. It doesn't take much light for you to see this. And this is an aurora shot. Is east of Edmonton. But the big thing with this is practice. You got to be able to set up your equipment in the dark. And that takes a lot of practice. And Roy, no, I don't use pre-capture. That's only in RAW, or no, JPEG. Maybe if it comes in RAW, that would work. And your camera location. Big thing with this is safety first. Make sure that you are safe wherever where you set up, because you're going to be in the dark. And you don't want people to come running by with on bicycles or whatever, and you get hit. It's if I'm on a bike trail in Calgary, I'll wear a safety vest, and it's because the bikers they travel faster than they can safely stop with their lights that they use, And also be considerate of others. Don't set up in front of others, so, that they were there first. This is the big thing. But remember, safety first. And focusing. Manual focusing always works, but it takes practice. And this is recorded. The link that you're using for tonight will get you back to here. So this is one of the sheets that you may want to look at. The easiest way to do it is you aim your camera at a light source the same distance away as your subject. And set your lens on manual focusing, both on the lens and in your camera. Then you turn on live view. This is what Nikon calls it. I'm not too sure what the other brands call it, but you're looking on your screen. Just magnify the light in your display, and you adjust the focus until the light source is either sharp or the smallest in the display. As you change your focus, you'll find that this light, it'll go from big to small to big. And when it's the smallest, that's when your camera's in focus. And your focus has to be checked whenever the camera is turned on and every 30 minutes. I found out with my Nikon Z cameras, even when it's on manual focusing on the lens and in the camera, whenever you turn your camera off and back on, the focus changes. So you got to refocus. This didn't happen with the F-mount cameras, and I still use the F-mount cameras, and lots of times I'll pull them out first. It's been taking me a long time to switch over to my Z mount for after dark. And autofocus only works with some cameras and fast glass. And if autofocus works, then focus your camera as you normally do and put it onto manual focus, because your subject may change, but your focus, you probably want to keep it the way it was. And the big thing is with number one here for your manual focusing, that takes practice. And the first time you do it, it may take you 10 minutes to get it right. But after you've done it a number of times, you can probably get it down to a minute or so. But when you're using a lens with a very short focal length, and if it's fast, your depth of field is very shallow. So you have to focus on the most important part of your subject. And I found that when I'm shooting the aurora, if I'm focused on the stars, my foreground is out of focus. So it's something that you have to consider. Like I said, everything in photography is a compromise. That's why that some people's after dark shots or low light shots, they're composites. And so one shot will be their foreground, and another one will be the background. Setting your exposure. I'm going to show, I've got some slides showing how I set up the histogram on my Nikons. They're coming up next. And your camera display is not a reliable indicator of your exposure in low light. Your eyes adjust for the ambient light, and your camera display also adjusts to a certain extent. And using your histogram is a must. And there's no such thing as the ideal bell curve shape in low light photography. And the more you use your histogram, the more that you realize that there's no such thing as the ideal bell curve in the middle either. Different subject types have their own unique histogram shape. You will recognize what to look for in your histogram. I'll go to the next slide and I'll come back to this one. See, in here, this is the center. In daylight, you usually try to have your bell curve around the center. But for night photography, I like to go to the left. And then it becomes dark like this. This is what I see after I take a shot with my camera. This tells me what camera that I used, and this tells me that the GPS was on and it's got a fix. Is an aperture priority. This is how my meter was set. Is 1/200th of a second f 1.2, ISO 1050 millimeters. And there's my white balance. There's RGB, and this is the folder that it's going into, and that was the file. And see, this is a JPEG. I was shooting raw, and the L basic is it has to do with the JPEG that I'm shooting. I shoot both at the same time, and the reason for that is I have iPads that I use when I travel. Apple does not like Nikon RAW. It can't open the files. It only opens JPEGs. So I shoot both. But on this display here, even if I was shooting just RAW, your camera has to create a JPEG file so it can display, and then your camera manufacturer, it processes it. This is nice to see, but your histogram over here, this is more important. And what I like to do is have it just a little bit to the left, but you want to have something showing all the way through here, because then you know you've got your lights that are in here. And I'll go back. And number 4 is I tend to expose a stop or two to the left, like I showed you on the histogram. But it depends on the subject and what you want the final product to look like. You can always darken an image, but brightening an image will increase the noise. What used to happen with the old Western movies is they were shot in the daylight, but what they did is they underexposed it quite a bit, so then you thought it was in the dark. And to determine the proper exposure requires a number of test shots. I tend to start by using aperture priority mode, and you know, pick your appropriate aperture for the subject and adjusting the ISO to give me about a 30-second exposure. That's if I want to see the light trails. If I don't want to see the light trails, I still pick an aperture and an ISO to give me approximately the shutter speed that I want for the type of shot that I want. And it's I have 4 of my Nikons will allow me to go up to a 900-second exposure in manual mode. I don't know, maybe I got 5, but I got 4 anyway. So shooting after dark is not a problem for me. Okay, Maria says, why the histogram to the left and not to the right? When it's to the left, That's the underexposed side. Oh, anything over here. There I go. Oh, wrong screen. Anything over here, this is the overexposed side. If I moved this to this location, it would look a lot like a daylight shot, but because there's so much black in it, it would tend to be overexposed. Okay, good evening, Albert. And I have another example here. And this one is a year ago and a bit. I like to shoot Calgary sunrises on days when the temperature is minus 30 and colder, so that I can get the steam coming off the buildings. And as this one here, you can see that it's a 30-second exposure at f14 at ISO 125. I wanted the long exposure so that I can see the steam coming off the buildings, and it looks kind of ghosty. But and if I had this over here further, this would be all blown out. And as it is, you can see there's a fair bit of brightness all the way across here. Okay. And I have another example. And these are photographs that I shot of the display from the back of my camera, shot it handheld using another camera. This is one of my shots that I had of the 9 o'clock gun. This is a half a second f4 ISO 1600, 15 millimeter. This is just gives you an idea, and because it was bright, you see how the histogram is an awful lot further to the right than I normally want to have it for shots at this time of the day. Okay, one more. Post-processing. I said, this is a topic for another day, and I'm not going to get into it at all. It's because you can go down a long rabbit hole, and there's an awful lot of people get into post-processing. There's not an awful lot of difference between post-processing a low light shot and a daylight shot. It's all that you want, or we want to see. Now, questions and comments. Camera brand doesn't matter. Experience and practice does matter. So you got to get out there. If anybody has any questions that they want answered before we meet in May, just put them in the chat, and I'll try to answer them right now. And if I told Jeff this is going to be between an hour and a half, and so I got 5 minutes to go.
Might as well switch you back on here, David.
Okay.
I think, at this point. And we will make you big.
Yeah. Yeah, this is my background. That's the shot I had in Callanish, and the light that I used, it runs off of 3 AAAs, and it's not very bright. It doesn't take much.
I think the questions with histograms, people get very confused with histograms, and they have to realize that your histogram is going to represent what your sensor is seeing. If you're predominantly shooting a image where most things are dark, then your histogram is going to be favoring the left-hand side. If you're shooting subjects that are predominantly white, then it's going to shift to the right-hand side. And when you're taking pictures in the daytime, you don't want to clip the highlights, obviously, because you can't recover them. So you might have it where you're, so let's just say 3/4 of the way across, maybe, and you want no clipping there, and you don't want any clipping of the shadows either. But when you're shooting at night, if you go and you try to adjust your exposure compensation, or if you're shooting manual and you change your f-stop or your shutter speed, and you move it over to the right, then you're making a nighttime image look more like a daytime image. So that's the point, is for it to look, you don't want to make your nighttime images look like you shot them at, the middle of the day, because then what's the point of going out and shooting at night?
Yeah, like you don't want it be any brighter than this image that I have here.
Yeah.
And in my background right now, and like this is at 2 o'clock in the morning, but you can see the stars in it. And I've got shots that I shot at this time at night with the aurora, and it looks like it's in daylight, but the aurora is visible in the sky, and so are the stars. It can give you a different effect. Yeah. And Roy, if you want to get into the panel, and you can talk about spectrograms, yeah, but it should be for another night, because I like to keep this one short and sweet, so that our PhotoClub Vancouver people can go back and review it if they have any questions. They don't seem to be all that many questions, and it's and if there's no more questions, well, we'll give it another couple of minutes, and then we can shut her down, Jeff.
Yeah. So I just want to thank everyone who came into the chat tonight, both from the frequent selective imagery folks, as well as the people, obviously, more importantly, the group of the Photo Club in Canada. And we hope that you guys enjoyed the presentation. And whenever you want to review and or add comments after the fact, if you think of things afterwards and you say, oh, I should have went in the chat and asked this question, you just can go in to the Selective Imagery YouTube channel and find this broadcast, and you can go in and leave a message in the video, and David will see it, and he can comment on those messages after the fact as well. So you have some time to kind of think things over and go back in and look at the recorded event and add questions after the fact if you wish to.
Yeah. The Photo Club Vancouver people, they've got my email address, so they can email me directly. Yeah. Yeah, and Woody, I'll mention that the QQQ, it makes them easier to spot, but I've got 4 monitors here, and I hit the chat in a place where I could easily see it.
Plus, David with David with glasses, he's like me. He has 4 eyes. Remember that.
Yeah, and sometimes it looks like I'm not looking at you, is because my camera is in the center of my 4 monitors. And so if I'm looking at a monitor, my eyes are away, not at the camera. And yeah, thank you, Terry and Gustavo, and Rakesh, and Maria, and everybody else, and Michael that made comments, and that was great. And if that's it, we'll call it tonight. And thank you very much, Jeff.
Yeah, no problem. So we say goodnight to everybody in the U.S. and Canada, and hopefully you had a good time. Have a good night.
And this is probably the most Canadians you've ever had.
Absolutely. I feel like I should be drinking a Molson Golden right now. But have a good one, everybody. We're ending the stream now.
Good night.